Hey, beautiful people. It's Liz. Good to be here with y'all. Hope this finds you doing well. And if it doesn't find you doing well, I also really honor and welcome that, which is actually the perfect segue into this video that I'm doing here today. So, as a feeler by nature and as someone who is naturally sensitive, this topic is super near and dear to my heart. It's the conversation of emotions. What are emotions? How does one relate to feelings, specifically our own individual personal feelings? So I'm coming online today and making this video to share just what I've come across that has been of service to me and that resonates with me in terms of frameworks and definitions and perspectives on what emotions are and how I personally relate to my own feelings. So yeah, so I'm psyched to be here, and I'm psyched to be here with you if you're checking it out and you're tuning in here. Because there's a lot of different frameworks out there about emotions and how to think about emotions, how to think about emotional energy, how to think about feelings. And again, what I'm sharing here today are really the ones that have resonated and been of service to me. And I'm doing so with the larger intention of hoping that it inspires a conversation amongst us all. I'd love to hear what frameworks and perspectives resonate and make sense to you. I'd love for that conversation to take place in this Facebook post. So commenting here below, or you can reach out to me and we can have a sidebar conversation about it. Or even if it just inspires a conversation within yourself or amongst friends about really demystifying and normalizing emotional energy and the experience of feelings, because it's something that is continuing to come out of the dark shadows, if you will, right? It's emotions and conversations about emotions and permissioning emotions and permissioning feelings is something that is continuing to come out of the taboo shadows, So it's a cool, exciting time to be talking about feelings. So I hope this serves as part of that conversation. So before diving into how I think about emotional energy, what emotions are to me, how I relate to my feelings, I want to start with just where I've come from with emotions. Like I said earlier, naturally I'm a feeler and I'm a naturally highly sensitive person. And even that word sensitive, I had to reclaim in my life. Because for so long it was used in a derogatory way, right? Or in a way that I felt really shameful about. Oh, you're so sensitive. Oh, Liz, stop being so sensitive, whatever it might be. And I've come to reclaim that term, as that word rather, as understanding it as my ability to sense that which is around me, right? So my journey with feelings and emotional energy and understanding my own emotions, it may be similar to a lot of us out here, because like I was sharing earlier, it's something that is coming out of the shadows, right? So, I definitely grew up with emotional energy, feelings, all that kind of stuff being quite taboo. And specifically it being kind of messy, unwanted, which again makes sense in our efficiency-driven world, that anything that can't be tightly managed would be dismissed to the side. And emotions are non-linear. So again, it makes sense that in our efficiency-driven culture that it just hasn't really been celebrated. I also grew up with these unconscious, subconscious beliefs that having challenging emotions, having confusing emotions meant that I was broken in some kind of way, right? That I was broken or defective or, just like it's one thing to have the feeling, right? And then it's another thing to have a feeling about the feeling. And that just ends up in this whole judgmental spiral of shame, you know? So I want to chat about just some of the ways that I've liberated myself from that shame spiral. And then more recently in my life, in the last decade of my life, it's even come through, you know, the New Age spiritual community, right? A lot of New Age practices really privilege and prioritize ascension, you know, transcending the physical realm, which is really beautiful and profound, and has been used sometimes to, you know, put down the experience of feelings. Oh, you're angry. Oh, maybe you're just not meditating enough, right? Anyone hear that one? So that's where I come from with emotional energy, and those are some of the, you know, limiting beliefs that I've embodied and taken in, that I've really had to deconstruct in my own journey of building a healthy relationship with my feelings. So diving into some of the ways that some of the perspectives and frameworks that I find really resonant and really of service as a naturally feelings-oriented person, as a sensitive person, that really resonate with me, is just on a basic level that emotions, or my emotions, are information. You know, it's information that parts of myself are communicating with me, you know. And sorry, I want to pause real quick because I see Sabrina chiming in. So Sabrina's saying, sensitive, almost like being a superpower, sense what's going on around you. Too often being sensitive is construed as high maintenance or overly emotional. Absolutely. Isn't that the truth, Sabrina? I so resonate with that. You know, and your comment is the comment is high maintenance or overly emotional or PMSing brings in that gendered component of it too, which, you know, I was debating to go into in this video, but I figured that's a whole nother topic. But absolutely, you know, we can really see reflections of the patriarchy in the way that we as a culture think about emotions, and you know, subconsciously our social norms around emotions. So I appreciate you bringing that in. But yeah, you know, so one of the basic frameworks that I've found that's really helped me in thinking about my emotions and understanding my emotions and getting myself out of that shame spiral, right, of like having feelings about my feelings, is just taking a step back and looking at any emotional response, any emotion that arises in me is a part of me trying to communicate something to me. Right, and that perspective pulls from internal family systems therapy, which understands the human, us as humans, as being in our emotional world and our psychological world as being made up of many different parts. And we have our whole adult state that ultimately we work to be leading the pack, if you will, be at the front of driving the car. And as that adult state, as that mama, as that papa, we take care of our parts, right? When our little self, you know, when we start feeling anxiety when we walk into a room, instead of being like, what the fuck is this anxiety? You know what I mean? Instead of like scrutinizing and judging that anxiety, you know, like creating some space within ourselves, creating some space within myself to be like, hey, baby girl, well, you know, like I see you. You know, I see you. What do you need right now? You need a glass of water? Cool, let's go grab a glass of water, right? Like that kind of maternal caregiving approach to the different emotions that rise up, instead of repressing and powering through, which again, just speaking from my own personal experience, has definitely been the way that I have approached my emotions in the past, and have been indirectly taught to work with my emotions. I love this one. So Dr. Diana Fasha, she is the founder of this therapeutic modality called Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy, AEDP for short. And it's a really beautiful, awesome, transformation-oriented therapeutic modality that's getting a lot of legwork and traction over the last decade or so. But she talks about how emotion. This is a quote from her: "Emotion and bodily sensations often reveal us to ourselves." Like they are communicating something to us, and so it's our job, in my humble opinion, to learn how to listen to them. Right? Learn not fix them and not dismiss them, but learn how to listen to them and like integrate them into ourselves in a way that works for us. And ultimately, here's another quote from her: "Emotions are wired into us by eons of evolution." Right. So what is the evolutionary purpose of these feelings? And it is, Dr. Diana Fasha talks about how they're here to help us cope with our environments, right? And to enhance our ability to adapt to what's going on around us. And also ultimately understand our needs more, right? So that we can live with more vitality and more energy and be more constructive, productive, creative beings, loving beings in this world. So that's the first set of framework that really resonates with me and works for me when I'm exploring and, my journey of deepening my relationship with my emotions. But I'll be straight up with you, man. Like there are emotions, there are experiences that I have that like don't make sense. Anyone here with me on that? There'll be like a voice that I'll hear, right? Or like a stream of thought that I'll hear that I'm like, what is that? Like intellectually, it doesn't align or resonate with everything else that I know to be true. It doesn't, feel tethered to other parts of my life. And, the framework that helps me understand some of those more confusing emotional experiences that really, that I can't make direct links to even within my own life, because I'm someone who has done a lot of like deep reflection on my foundation and on, hey Raquel, thanks for saying that. I was missing seeing your lives. Thanks for saying that, Mama. It's good to see you. So some of those confusing emotional experiences that I can't directly tie back to foundational experiences from my past, right? The perspective of understanding that, and this is something that epigenetics is showing more and more of, that we actually inherit emotional energy from our family. Both in terms of the nurture part of things, both in terms of our social environments, both in terms of the norms that we adopt and take in from our families and schools and everything like that. But then also, there's research being done and data being shown that it's actually also at a genetic level. That there's actually an intergenerational passing down of trauma that can take place. And one could say often does take place, right? Because for many of our families, many of our lineages, we're coming from pasts that were ridden with conflict and war and disease and different types of tragedies, different types of oppression, different types of hardships that, one could say gets passed down. This is research that's all, it's fresh, it's new, it's something that's still being flushed out. But I know just that perspective that emotions can be inherited from our lineages and from our families, and that there's an intergenerational component to this metaphysical experience that we have, to the emotional experiences that we have, really is of service to me, especially with some of those threads of experience that I experience within myself that I can't totally trace back to my foundation, to my younger years. So that's the other framework that I find really helpful, and just kind of again like creates some spaciousness for me and has some interesting points of reflection for me. And then lastly, something that I feel really inspired by when it comes to emotional energy in this current time of change that we're in, cultural change, socioeconomic change, consciousness shifts and change and transitions that are taking place in our world, is that I really feel and believe that the fact that we are having these conversations about emotions and about processing emotional energy, the fact that we have more tools and modalities at our disposal, and the fact that we now have more space and time in our lives, right? More leisure time in our day-to-day lives to be able to do this work and access these tools is an indication of our development as a world. We can think of it as like a socioeconomic milestone that, and again, it is a privilege to be able to do it, right? It's a privilege to be able to go and do that deep work within ourselves. It's a privilege to be able to have the self-awareness to be able to take care of our parts, but the fact that more and more of us have access to that is a reflection of our socioeconomic development as a world. And I believe it's like the next phase of our evolution as a species in the development of our consciousness. So those are some of my thoughts. Again, my whole intention on sharing this is to really inspire a larger conversation amongst us all. So I would love to turn it over to you, post, respond in this thread here. I'd love to hear what your perspective is on emotions, what frameworks and tools really help you and are service to you, and then what you think the evolutionary purpose of emotions are during this time of rapid change going on in our world. It's so good to be here. I'll just give one other shout out. Something that I really, really love to do, and I feel really humbled and honored to get to do in my life, is work with people on a one-on-one coaching capacity. To do exactly this, to support people in coming into fuller and deeper and more clarified relationships with their emotional world, with their internal world, with their unique sense of self. So if that's something that is interesting to you, if you want to chat with me about that, to learn more about how I work with people on a one-on-one basis, what my coaching packages are, and even schedule a discovery call where we can, hop on the phone together and really feel into what it would be like to work together. Let me know, hit me up. I would love to hear from you, because again, it's just one of my favorite things to do, and I feel really honored and grateful to get to do it. So that's all from me, folks. Thank you so much for being here, man, for connecting again. Let's keep this conversation going. Sending so much love to you and your family and your world and everything that's going on in it. Just sending you deep, deep blessings for everything. Thanks so much. Take care.